This is the Relevant Podcast.
It's episode 1158, and it's the Relevant Podcast here in Orlando. I'm your host, Cameron Strang, and joining me from Loverland, Virginia, it's Jesse Carey.
Hello, hello.
From Nashville, our managing editor, downtown Emily Brown.
Hey, y'all.
And just down the street there, artist, producer, mogul, Derek Miner.
What up, though?
Marty is off today. He'll be on the next episode.
So are we not going to make jokes about Marty dying for being off for one day? Because about half the episode was y'all first talking about my death and then very quickly accepting it.
Yeah. Don't say y'all. First of all, don't say y'all. Because I was in your corner.
Derek was quiet.
I was like, you know what? Nope.
For context.
Pentecostal. We don't speak things.
That's true. That's good.
Thank you.
But for those who missed it, last episode, Emily was out, and it was because she was traveling to Texas to spend the weekend at a remote lake house with college friends. So immediately we assumed she was going to get murdered.
Now,
so, yeah.
The reason we move through all of the stages of grief and skip right to acceptance was not because of a lack of affection for you. It was because it just seemed like such an inevitability that we might as well
That's
just
we might as well just not mourn her death. Got it.
Right.
Now, they're saying you beat the odds. No, they're saying you beat the odds. You're here.
Yeah, we're celebrating life, Emily. We're not mourning loss.
We know how we know how lake house vacations in Texas work with young friends. So my question is, obviously, you were the only one to survive because that's how these things work. There's only one that survives.
The smart one makes it out. Yeah.
And you were finally able to somehow, take down the killer through some elaborate means, whether it be, electrocution or turning the hatchet on him. What happened? How did you survive? And, I'm sorry about all of your friends.
Well, like you, I've moved on to the acceptance phase pretty quickly, about 3 days afterwards.
Skipped right to it.
You know what? There were some injuries, I will say. Some people stubbed some toes. Some people got a little scratch when they were slicing something. I don't know what they were doing. But no, we all had a happy
Preferably not
time.
Slicing humans.
Yeah.
Not humans,
Slicing
no.
things.
I think they were like... they were cutting. Oh, it was when we were making fajitas. Someone was like cutting chicken and they cut themselves. So, yeah.
Speaking of fajitas, I sent a picture randomly this morning that I came across on the internet. It just stopped me in my tracks. I was scrolling X, stopped me in my tracks. Somebody posted a picture of the most delicious jerk chicken burrito you've ever seen in your life. I mean, it's morning here, and I was like, I got immediately hungry. And so I have to share this with people. And it made the other guys immediately hungry. The funny thing is like guys in LA, 8 a.m. are like, where can we get this? Where can we find jerk chicken today? Yeah, like it made all of us so hungry. So
that's the wholesome content that we need more of on the internet.
I don't know where do you find a jerk chicken burrito? Like
Florida, because we got Jamaican culture and Hispanic culture, and we have a lot of fusion. I literally looked it up. I can go get a jerk chicken burrito 4 minutes from my house. I'm so excited. I'm going today.
Derek, if you live in a less ethnically diverse area, I will say Tropical Smoothie has a Jamaican jerk chicken wrap. That is delightful as well.
Absolutely not.
I think I'm going to pass.
Absolutely not.
I think I'm going to pass.
I think Wawa. Wawa does a little thing.
You guys are making me frustrated right now as a foodie. You're really making me like this is a very frustrating time for me.
Jamba Juice, they're dabbling.
Yeah. So you got tons
Say
of options.
Another word, Cameron. You say one more word.
Can I give a quick update on a situation that we've been diligently covering here on the pod?
Yeah, we've talked about my death enough.
Wait, does this have to do with something that's happening outside of your window?
Yes, right now.
Oh, are you serious?
You guys may remember a couple of weeks ago when I noticed in the intersection across the street from my window a protester. And it was very unclear what she was protesting because the poster board was bright yellow, for one, on a bright sunny day. She'd used what appeared to be just one pass with a Sharpie and not a very big one. So the lettering was very thin and hard to read on a sunny day off a yellow poster board. And there's way too much copy on there. And she's walking back and forth. It was too much to read. Now, we did, one of the guys in the office was able to kind of walk by and snap a pic, and we were able to ascertain that she's displeased about the conditions at her luxury apartment that she lives in. The issues range from birds in the air ducts to unsafe balconies, things of nature. I just want to keep in mind here, this place is it's very new, and it's attached to an indoor skydiving facility. So it's not like we're talking. This is some sort of
early 90s. The stucco's cracking. They didn't maintain it well.
Wait,
No,
I have a question. When you say it's attached to it, does she have do they have access to the indoor skydiving?
It's an amenity for the apartment residents. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Crazy. That would be a crazy amenity for sure.
We have a pool here. Here's the indoor air duct where you can fly. Here's the
but it is the type of thing that has a lot of amenities. But anyway, and my complaint, and here's my dilemma was, do I go say something to her? Because I'm watching her all day sweat out there, protesting these conditions. Yeah. And no one can read it. And I feel bad because I can tell no one can read it. I think you need to just stand
on the other corner with your own sign that says TMI and just look her dead in the eye that you're protesting her sign that's trying to say too much.
I think she listened to the pod. I'm pretty certain she did, because she's back today. She has a new poster. This one is a white poster with huge black block letterings, and she's condensed her message simply down to slumlord. Okay? I don't need to know the specificities of the grievances. I don't need to know about the birds in the air ducts. They had on the old poster, it actually asked for the local news, Wavy TV 10, to come out. It said, please come, Wavy TV 10. Too much messaging.
Yeah. Too much. Less is more.
This is right to the point, and even the color is better. I think she must have listened.
I am shocked at how people live in such a bubble that she thinks in her luxury new construction apartment complex that has some deferred maintenance or some new construction issues or something, that she's claiming slumlord, showing that she's never experienced a world outside of her bubble to understand what a real slumlord is doing to people. That's crazy to me that she's using words like that.
She went there.
Slumlord, but I'll say this: getting someone's attention. She's getting attention, though.
I'm not supporting the message. I'm just saying I can clearly see what the issue is.
If this before,
you'd have to drive around the block like 4 times.
That's what I'm saying.
What does her haircut look like?
It's in a ponytail. But here's the deal. Listen, I'm not supporting the message. I am simply saying this is a more effective delivery. Because otherwise, even if you were a motorist that were cared about this, you'd have to drive around the block like 4 times to even get a good look at what she was complaining about.
So is she standing in front of the apartment complex saying slumlord?
Right in front of the office. Right in front of the office.
The office of the apartment complex.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a pretty big allegation.
Is she
standing,
walking around, or is she just sitting with the sign slumlord sitting in front of her?
Going back and forth. She's going back and forth.
This is what I'm at. Is there anyone else with her? Or is it just her?
This is
the most Karen thing I've ever heard of in my life.
She appears to be the only resident
that feels this way in the whole complex.
I'll say this: she's clearly the only one who feels this way strong enoughly to spend several afternoons just pacing back and forth on the sidewalk.
This is wild.
She doesn't.
Does she not have a job?
She has a lot of money. She has to. She has to have so much money that this is a huge concern for her.
All of these details are unclear. I don't know her income, and I don't know her employment situation. All I know is there are birds in her air ducts, and she feels that the conditions of the balconies are unsafe. It looks safe to me. But what do I know? I've never actually been up there, but I do. I see a lot of nice cars coming in and out of the parking garage. I don't know. I don't think it would constitute a slum.
No. What if she doesn't even live in those apartments?
Yeah.
That would make
this the
twist of the century. That she doesn't even live there.
I hope this is just like a crazy ex, and she just wants to sabotage her ex's new apartment complex building.
No, she's getting them to fix it up. That's not sabotage.
I mean, right now she's just saying that he's a slumlord, or
I'll be honest,
they are a slumlord.
The exterior looks pretty nice.
Maybe her ex is the manager of the apartment complex.
Yeah, and is just trying to sabotage business by saying a slumlord lives in these nice new apartments.
I'm at the point where I'm just about to walk across the street and talk to her.
It's that time, Jesse.
Now,
do you wear like a tiny mic when you do it, or
yeah,
like
those
have your
little
phone in your
TikTok
pocket?
lapel mics with the big fur, like.
I just looked it up on Google, and according to Google reviews, it's ranked pretty high. It's got, well, 2 days ago, someone placed a 1-star review, and it's the only recent 1-star. I have a feeling it's her.
It's her. For sure it's her.
What is it? Wait, what did they say?
Okay, here we go.
She might be picking up steam.
People should have doors that lock, vermin-free exterior air ducts, no roaches, and palm beetle infestations in living quarters.
Oh, that's her. That's without a doubt her. She wrote
That's her.
Yeah.
So she saw what she called them, palmetto bugs. Those are like those big roaches in the South. They live outside. They don't live inside houses. So if you see them in your house, that thing came in through a crack or an open door or something like that. So
do you think these animals are coming in somehow through the skydiving facility?
I'm going to give you guys.
Maybe the skydiving facility, the wind is blowing all the rats and roaches up into the apartments through the balconies.
What I'm thinking.
Like into the balconies, the palmetto bugs will land on the balconies walking.
That seems like the most. Did you say it's a QAnon?
No, this is. Well, I'm not going to say the actual name of the apartment complex, but it's Aqua, so it's Live Aqua.
Okay, so I'll be honest. I think I had a slight dyslexic moment there because I thought it said QAnon for a second.
It literally looks like it says Live QAnon. Like,
yeah, I thought that's what you were saying.
But this is the place that this is the place that she's complaining about.
Help is what we're saying here.
Yeah,
I mean, among the amenities appears. That's what I'm saying. That's why this is so baffling to me. I need to go get to the bottom of this one. I need to go have a conversation and find out what the real story is.
I mean, this lady moved into her new apartment. She's not happy that she saw some roaches. You know, she's not happy that a bird from the beach flew into an exterior duct. And she's carrying the maintenance guy. Get up here. He didn't come fast enough. Or
look what I just found, guys. Oh, boy. I should have done more research. This is the local news story.
It's Fighting for Your Rights, A Tale of Two Tenants, an investigative report
Here's
from
a quote.
WAVY.
Birds flying in and out of dryer vents, nesting in dryer vents. I think a lot of the complaints seem to be up this bird issue. That's a quote from this news story.
It's the slumlord. Okay, dryer vents, which go out to the outside, they clearly just didn't put a little mesh blocker on the vent. So birds have made their way into the dryer vent, and this lady is out there saying slumlord. Wake up to the real world, lady. I don't want to.
Also, she's getting hit with fees too. It seems. I'm trying to see. So she got a $150 fee, and then she got a $75 fee.
Just said, "Oh no!
Oh boy!
This is not going to end well."
I need. Yeah, it looks like there's a lot to unpack here.
You were criticizing her old sign, but the old sign called for the news to report her situation, and it worked.
Yeah,
so
it probably would have been out, but that was weeks later. It probably been out here way quicker if we knew exactly what the beef was. Either way, she updated the sign. I don't need to get into the nuances of what the complaints are and make my assertion. I don't know what she's paying for this place, but I all I know is that her sign is more effective.
Jesse, do you see this? This was actually on TV.
I know.
Like I thought it was just a written article. I'm looking like they actually interviewed.
I probably should have done more research, but she just came out right before we started recording. Yeah, but either way, we're bearing the lead here. The poster's been resolved. Her message is getting out more clearly, whether you agree or disagree. I'm just glad.
I see the yellow sign.
Is it not, Derek? Is it not hard to read? Is it? That's what bothers me. That's what bothers me about this whole thing. Her sign is hard to read.
It's bad. It's really bad. I see it.
The listener who gets to this part of the podcast is going to be like, oh, that was a little funny 45-second anecdote, not realizing that we took 17 minutes to unpack this story.
Let's go.
During the recording.
Let's go.
I'm trying.
Let's keep going.
I'm trying. I've said multiple times the moral is the sign's better. That is the cue. We can move on.
The listener doesn't know that they pulled up web stories. They were looking at floor plans.
We are nothing if not thorough.
Yeah. Why is this podcast so short? Well, because we had to cut out 20 minutes of investigating a local.
This is important, Cameron. This is really important.
This is now the second time we've moved on very quickly from me talking about my death.
That is true.
Second podcast in a row.
Jesse literally said, we're glad you're alive. Sorry for your friends. I want to talk about this lady across the street. Yeah.
This seemed like an important update.
And you know what? I'll say it. I think Jesse was the one that moved on from my death last week. So I'm sensing a pattern here, Jesse.
If you heard the clip at the end of the show, it was Jesse's segue. All he said was, so we can all agree Emily's dead, right? Okay. Moving on. Yeah. And he literally, that's how he segued out of...
Guys, if you notice, I'm not the one that's keep harping on all this. I'm ready to move on. I just feel like I provided too fascinating of an anecdote to start the show with. My apologies.
Listen, I'll forgive you. I won't forget, but I will forgive you.
Dang. Trust me, she means that. She doesn't forget, ever. Well, we have a great show in store for you today. Coming up later, we talk to author, speaker, Jon Acuff. There have been a lot of studies recently. We've been covering this over at Relevant about Gen Z and the struggles that the generation has had with self-image and self-doubt, mental health, negative thoughts. And we remembered that Jon wrote a book about that a year or two ago. It's called The Soundtrack of Your Life. And we bring him on to talk about that important topic. You don't want to miss that conversation. At the end of the show, we have your feedback, but stay tuned right now. Coming up, it's Relevant Buzz.
So difficult, so invincible, irresistible, but I loved you still. You kept my secrets and stole my weaknesses in your white t-shirt that I couldn't fill. The shoes you laid out for me from the girls that came before. I was all the way and you were halfway out the door. Oh, I wasn't there, no more making my way up the hill. And you were going in for the kill.
You're listening to Maggie Rogers, former Relevant cover artist Maggie Rogers. The song is The Kill. The wait is officially over. Ann Wilson's newest album, Rebel, is out now. Following up on her Grammy-nominated debut album, My Jesus, her sophomore project is jam-packed with 16 songs and features guest artists including Chris Tomlin, Lainey Wilson, and Jordan Davis. Blending her love for God with her roots in all things country, Ann is a true rebel in modern music. Be sure to check out Ann Wilson's newest album, Rebel, available now everywhere you listen to music. Okay, it's time for
Relevant Buzz.
Tell us what's happening at the intersection of faith and culture this week, Emily.
Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is Alan Ritchson. Most people know him as Reacher from the Amazon Prime series, but he is also...
Wait, is he the one that's very good looking?
Yeah,
yes.
He's remarkably handsome.
He's fly for real.
Okay.
Should
I've never
we
seen the
actually
show.
Spend the whole
I
time
just
talking
know.
about him.
I just wanted to make sure I was tracking because I've never seen Reacher, but I know the Reacher guy is stunningly good looking. So I just want to make sure we're talking about that.
Yes, the stunningly good-looking man who is also a very outspoken Christian.
Huh.
Lit.
Yeah, we needed some hot representation there. I had heard he was a
So
Christian.
he's just checking all the boxes for Emily right now. Super hot, super Christian. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay.
The primary two boxes.
They're important ones. But anyways, I had heard he was a Christian, but he did a recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter, and some of the things he said in it were just pleasantly surprising to me. He talked about some issues he has with the church, which we'll get to in a second, but he was also very straightforward about his faith in a way that I haven't really heard a lot of Hollywood Christians talk. So he said things like, I'm a Christian quite simply because of what Jesus calls us to do. Love other people until death. It doesn't mean we're all to be hung on a cross, but how can I suffer for you? That is a beautiful thing.
You don't really hear the American church talking like that very much.
I'm sorry. I can't. I'm distracted by his biceps. Like, this dude looks like
He's
he
too
just
handsome to be
lifts
delivering this
weights.
message effectively.
Or like he just lifts weights daily for hours. Like it's making me want to get back in the gym. like I said I was gonna have a beach body 3 years ago, and I've yet to achieve that goal. But
it's
I have to do it. Like I have to get in the gym. I have to look like this. Like this is what envy looks like.
He looks like a superhero.
He literally looks like he has superpowers. Like all he's missing is just like lasers coming out of his eye.
Emily, here's the problem. We all, with our ears, are hearing words you're saying.
Right.
But Cameron pulled up a picture of this gentleman, and we're just distracted by shockingly good looks and physique.
It's really wild. It's like it's not fair.
Derek is now doing push-ups.
Derek literally left the mic to start doing push-ups. All right.
Starts now.
Derek, but you got to hear what else he said, because like he is saying like some. Here's the thing, looking like him, he gets away with saying certain things, because I have never heard really any Christian or any public figure Christian talk about the church in this way. But I think he gets away with it because he's got those big muscles. Because something he said that I've been thinking about is Christians today have become the most vitriolic tribe. It is too antithetical to what Jesus was calling us to be and to do. Trump is a rapist and a con man, and yet the entire Christian church seems to be treating him like he's their poster child, and it's unreal. I don't understand it.
Oh.
Okay, Ellen Richter.
You went there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. A little spicy.
Yeah.
So Emily, checklist. Really, really, really hot. Loves Jesus. Speaks his mind boldly.
Yeah. I hope everyone listening is jotting that down.
I'm looking at his arms. It really is stunning. He could curl 2 or 3 of us at the same time, like
with ease,
and not break a sweat.
No.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Did he get backlash for calling out Christians for being vitriolic? Like, did the Christians turn on him, or because Christians like to put their? But I'm saying, like, Christians,
ain't nobody saying nothing to him.
When a Christian, like when a Hollywood person, a legit Hollywood person says, I'm a believer, Christians tend to go put him up on a pedestal, thinking Chris Pratt, others, and, you know, they can almost do no wrong. And like, but then if he's calling out, you know, Christian nationalism or problems he sees in the church, I'm just curious how Christians are reacting.
If you're Rick Moranis, you get punched in the face walking down the street.
Right.
If you're this guy, ain't nobody saying nothing.
Alan Richter.
Ain't nobody saying nothing to this man. But yeah, that's crazy. I think they probably just gonna throw him in the Hollywood camp and do like some.
But that's the thing, is like, he's not Hollyweird, because the way he talks about his faith is like really sincere. Like, this guy loves the Lord. The moment
that he brought up Trump, he's officially Hollyweird, and he's being controlled by Diddy.
He's too woke and all that.
He's too woke.
Yeah.
So he has been getting some backlash from, I would say, people more in like the Christian nationalist camp who are upset with him. But a lot of other Christians are much more comfortable with him and like very happy that someone of his kind of fame and popularity is speaking about this, because he's like, this is kind of the height of his career right now. And so the fact that he's still being so outspoken, but I do want to clarify, this is not the first time he's ever talked about his faith like this before. He actually has a YouTube channel called Insta Church, where he posts videos like exploring the Bible, talking about his faith and how it relates to his life, his work.
Yeah. Here's a brief clip of one of his posts.
I think the kingdom of Christ calls us to something very different. I think the kingdom of Christ calls us to exceedingly challenging relational conversations, to confront long-term relationships in a way that is done with love, but is done with some level of authenticity that allows us to go deep into the roots and heart of who people are, where real healing can take place. We've got somebody who's asking Jesus, how many times am I supposed to forgive? Like, there's got to be some limit, right? 7 times? And Jesus said, no, 70 times, 7 times. This number that's sort of...
Good for him. Man, that's awesome.
Real quick, I do feel like if there's one guy that can bring back those Lord's Gym shirts from like the late... Cameron, you know what I'm talking about, from late 90s. They
looked like Gold's Gyms, but it was God's Gym, and then it evolved to the Lord's Gym for some reason.
Yeah. And I think the imagery seemed a little problematic because it was like a cartoony Jesus like bench pushing up with the cross on his back. But either way, they were popular for a while. The old Lord's Gym.
Mm-hmm.
He could bring them
one
back.
man that could bring them back,
but he shouldn't.
I'm not saying he should.
Marty will bring him back.
He could.
He does funny shirts all the time.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness.
What I think Alan should do is star in the inevitable movie about the power team that's going to come out, I'm sure, at some point. I think he absolutely could be in that film. He could play every character, and I'd be fine with it.
Amazing. He should be John Jacobson. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Moving on. We also need to talk about a very viral moment Mark Driscoll had this week. He got kicked off stage at a conference for calling out the conference for having a really questionable act earlier that day.
Can I just note that the first two buzz items are about physique? I just want to note that. Well, we can continue.
I don't think that Mark's criticism was about the performer's physique.
Played a role. Let's hear it. Let's hear what the problem was.
I did play a role. Now, okay, for those who aren't sure exactly what happened, there was the Stronger Men's Conference last week in Springfield, Missouri. And to kick off the conference, they invited a man named Alex Magala to perform a sword swallowing act. This man got famous for his performance when he was a contestant on Britain's Got Talent. And during the performance, Magala took off his shirt, swallowed a sword, and then climbed a pole to some rock music.
A stripper pole.
Mm-hmm.
It was a metal pole, yes. Unconfirmed if it was an official stripper pole.
Somewhat suggestive.
It didn't have no stripper booty sweat on it, but it's a stripper pole, y'all.
It's a pole, but I mean, there are performers like Cirque du Soleil that do like contortionist acrobatic stuff. And that's kind of what he was doing, like climbing up the pole sideways and things like that with the sword in his mouth. There's just
with the shirt off. Right. Let's do know that.
Yeah. It was odd. I
got my take. I'm going to let y'all finish. I got my take.
Yeah. A lot of people had takes, including Mark Driscoll. He was invited to the conference to speak. But when he got on stage, he was clearly just not happy about the performance. And he started talking about it, saying it reminded him of a strip club performance. We're going to play a clip of what he said here.
We're going to talk about how to be an Elijah. Yeah. And how to deal with Ahab and Jezebel. But let me do this. I've been up since 1 o'clock in the morning. The reason I'm hoarse is I have been praying for you, and my heart is very burdened for you. And I want to be very careful with this, and it's not what I want to say, but the Jezebel spirit has already been here. The Jezebel spirit opened our event. This is a rebuke and a correction of no one. This is an observation. Before the Word of God was opened, there was a platform. It was a high place. On it was a pole, an ashtray. The same thing that's used in a strip club for women who have the Jezebel spirit to seduce men. In front of that was a man who ripped his shirt off like a woman does in front of a pole at a strip club. That man then ascended. See, our God is not arrogant. He doesn't ascend. Our God is humble. He descends. And then he swallowed a sword. And Jesus cried, okay, Pastor John, I'll receive that. Thank you.
And so that's when Mark left. That video went viral and everyone's talking about it. But there's actually a little bit more to the story that I want to make sure we have. At the end of the video, so at the end, you can hear someone start yelling, "You're out of line, Mark." And that's Pastor John Lindell. He is the leader of the church hosting the conference. There's another video where it shows him walking out on stage to cut Mark off. And he said that Mark was out of line for what he just said. Here's what he said to the audience.
It's interesting that they're booing. I can't tell if they're booing the pastor for kicking Mark off or if they're booing Mark, who's not on the stage anymore. for making the pastor mad. I can't tell who they're booing.
Guys, is this like, you remember a couple weeks ago, there was this viral video of people in the Alpha training camp, and people were just making fun of those guys for being like betas because they're paying $18,000.
Oh, yeah. They're getting yelled at in the rain.
Is that what this is, but just the Christian version? Because that's what it feels like. It feels very similar to like that thing packaged for Christian men.
This is basically an acquire the fire for like bros
for men,
for just like the internet.
So it is the same thing.
So if you remember back in the 90s, there was like Promise Keepers and stuff, like big men's gatherings and men's conferences and stuff, but it was more about teaching and worship, and that's it, you know, and how to live a good life and be a good father and all that kind of stuff. And this church in particular has gotten noticed every year because they do these crazy men's events. Like last year we were talking about, like they brought tanks into the arena. They always have these larger than life, like,
they had like flaming monster trucks one year doing.
It's crazy.
They jumped the shark.
Yeah, and so this year they got this stripper kid, which we didn't clarify this. He did used to be a male stripper.
He's a man. Yes. Yeah, he's not a kid. Yeah.
You
should.
Listen,
he's not like a child stripper. He is a full-grown.
I'm just gonna put it this way: because I'm still doing events and people bring me out, but I'm gonna tell you right now, if you bring me to your event and before I get on stage to rap, there's a shirtless man sashaying around a stripper pole, swallowing metal glizzies, I'm walking off the stage. Like it's just like this. That's is what just Mark did. It's too much. Like it's like, bro, like it's like I get it. I know that but come on, gang. Like this don't got nothing to do with nothing. It's to me, it ain't even got. First of all, we gotta pause the moment. Like we have to just say pause on this whole thing. But at the same time, like this is just chaos. Like it's ridiculous. This is a ridiculous controversy, but it's definitely going to work in Mark Driscoll's favor because he stood up.
Well, a lot of people actually are not happy with Mark because like Jon's kind of big complaint is that Mark didn't address this privately, which biblically, if you have an issue, you should address it privately. And that's what Jon was upset about. And there is actually another video. We're going to play it in a second. Mark does come back on stage later with Jon to sort of apologize for what he did. In this video, Jon and Mark are talking about what happened, and Mark doesn't apologize for what he said, but he does acknowledge that he didn't do it in the way that he probably should have. Here's what he had to say.
But here's the thing, you have to be careful that you do not criticize people who have the anointing of God on their life. Better to say nothing. Because what happens is, once you begin to criticize somebody who has the anointing on them, you're in the flesh. And once you're in the flesh, then you're moving toward unbelief. And once you move toward unbelief, then you live a barren life spiritually. And that's the danger. You see, you could go out of here not knowing Mark and I personally. You could go out of here chattering. And what happens is that it poisons your spirit and it leads you to a place of unbelief.
Yeah, that's an interesting clarification. He did apologize, acknowledged that he should have brought it up with the pastor first. This is his event. I should have run it, what do you say? Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down on if I can say something. The question is then, if you're Mark Driscoll and you're really spiritually bothered by what you just saw on stage, this has no place, this grieves the Holy Spirit. And I bring it up to the pastor before I go out to speak. And he says, no, don't criticize my conference at my conference. What do you do if you're Mark? Do you still go out there?
Mark said that he would agree, like whatever Jon kind of said, he would, adhere to it and abide by it. Now, would he, he's saying that now. I don't know if he would actually stay with that. But
if you have that real conviction, I'd like to Derek's point, like, I'm not going to be associated with what just happened. I'm not going out there if that's me co-signing what just happened,
I'll say this.
It's just silly. Like this is
just weird. But this is a part of the Christian American megachurch culture that has lost the plot. And I'll be honest with you, there's some people who have pointed out certain things from like Mike Todd's church that it's like, this is not pointing people to Jesus. This is a distraction from Jesus. The spectacle is not necessary. Yeah. The Holy Spirit doesn't need that, that kind of stuff. That's the same thing people are saying about this. Now, this is like a little bit more like God and country, tanks and whatever. It's just weird that they had a male stripper doing a pole dance. I don't know why, that doesn't really fit the typical narrative.
Under no circumstances should a male stripper with his shirt off be at any Christian event. Like, can we make that clear? Event. Kicking the joint off, swallowing metal glizzies.
I'm not defending it.
Is this? Come on. I'm sorry, Jesse. Go ahead, bro. But I just can we just establish that John should have ran that by some people before who did you run this by, John? You ain't running by Derek and Cameron and Jesse and Emily.
Listen, I'm not defending it. So, but let me just say this.
Yeah.
But first off, I agree with you, Cameron. I think the spectacle in general is unnecessary. Right. And but I think for conference and stuff that do go for it, here's how I see it. Cameron, you and I have been to enough NBA games to know that during halftime, that's what it is. It's some sort of weird spectacle, right? Just to keep people entertained. Sometimes they go a little sideways, right? Sometimes you probably shouldn't have brought a live kangaroo and boxed them, or
Emily. That happened. Jesse and I were at a Magic game,
or a dance routine.
We were at a Magic game. The halftime show was our mascot stuffed the Magic Dragon with big oversized boxing gloves. They put a little rink out on the court, and they brought out a kangaroo that boxes, a boxing kangaroo on a leash, and the kangaroo were going to box playfully, and it was the most uncomfortable thing ever because we're sitting there all going,
"Is this a real place?
Is this animal cruelty? Is this animal cruelty? He's beating a kangaroo."
Listen, sometimes a dance routine will get a little I don't know, we got kids in here. What? Listen, all I'm saying is I'm not defending this specific thing, but if the intention was let's have, to your point, a Cirque du Soleil type of person that can show, this sort of
a feat of strength kind of a thing.
Because a person this routine won on America's Got Talent, right? There's some other context here. It wasn't they went
Britain's
to the
Got Talent. They have very different standards than America's Got Talent.
It wasn't they went to a nightclub and found this guy. Like I said,
we don't know. Maybe that's where he auditioned.
I guarantee you could probably book this guy for a halftime show. You know what I mean? And do a similar sort of all I'm saying is
the halftime shows you could have booked though. It's so many different.
I would have rather see Mark Driscoll box a kangaroo than watch
Next
this
year.
guy. I'm not defending. I'm just saying, you could see how if it's about spectacle and the fusion of entertainment with ministry, you could see how someone thought, oh, this would be cool. I saw this performance on TV or whatever, and then it just in the context this was. Again, I'm not defending. I could just see how it could happen.
How it got in the lineup of we're gonna have this little 10-minute performance.
Listen. Morally, I'm indifferent. I don't really care. I think that you should not have male strippers in the church. But that's just me. But my thing is, I think it's at this moment when John Lindell has to say, I need to change my my friend group, or I need to change my staff because I got all yes people. Because if you told me, bro, we're going to do the Relevant Podcast Conference. This ain't church. This is just the Relevant Podcast Conference. I am not letting you put a male stripper on stage.
Okay. Hear me out. Hear me out.
I'm just not going to do it.
Hear me out. There's no
hear me out.
Hold on. Monster trucks. In the bed of the monster truck, we build a pole. Out of the back of the bed of the monster truck. You hang this guy onto the pole as they jump over a flaming tank.
It's a no.
Oh, gosh.
It's a no.
You're grieving the Holy Spirit, Derek.
Cameron, it is a Cameron, I am not coming to the show. I will not be there. Y'all will be having this by yourself. And when it come out, I'm telling them, I told you so. This will be that. That's what it is. That's
driving the monster truck, stuff the Magic Dragon.
I am on this performers.
John needs some homies, bro. Call me up, John.
For real.
Listen, anytime y'all want, call me. If you feel I don't know, just shoot me a DM. I answer all my DMs. Just be like, hey, bro, I'm thinking about putting a male stripper on before this conference to swallow swords. What you think, Derek? Is up or down? And I'm just gonna give you a thumbs up or thumbs down. I got you. I do it for a service for free just because I don't like Headlines.
Derek, I have issues with my landlord. I wrote this big sign. Do you think the sign will be effective? Nope. One word.
Look, I'm just gonna give you a thumbs up, thumbs down. I got you. It's love. It's nothing.
Everybody needs friends like Derek in their life. Shoot straight.
I am on this performer's. Here's another wrinkle. I haven't seen this before. Anyway.
Jesse, I just got a text from your purity filter. I'm your accountability partner. You need to get off that website.
Listen, one, he holds 2 Guinness World Records. Can I read his statement that he posted? Because I haven't seen anybody post this.
I'm with it. Run it.
It's a longer one, but I'm going to read a portion. He says, Pastor Mark Driscoll's remarks about my act failed to recognize the difference between, quote, a male striptease and a stunt performance rooted in art and sport. Only an uninformed person would draw a comparison between my act and inappropriate performance. I feel this Danger Act is perfect for the Stronger Men's Conference. It provides inspiration to the audience and permission for them to reach new heights for what's possible in their lives. I am a Christian, and I have always aimed to use my talents to inspire and entertain audiences in a way that respects my faith. Mm-hmm. The act in question was designed to be a celebration of physical human achievements that is aligned with James River Church's purpose in bringing others into the light of God. It's essential to approach such performances with understanding of their intention rather than reducing them to entertainment.
I just pulled up his an article from the Daily Mail. Showing him as a male stripper with money in his thong.
I'm just reading his statement. Yeah, I'm not defending. I'm just saying that I think there's some greater context that was missing with the whole story.
I will say,
the greater context is we don't need this. We just don't need it.
No, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. But since we are talking about it, I do feel like, in fairness, the person at the center of it, his perspective is valid.
Yeah.
Well, there's a million think pieces online if you want to hear more about it. So
a million think pieces at our website, relevantmagazine.com.
You're welcome. All right. Last thing before we wrap up, just really quickly, there is a biopic about Chris Farley that is on the way. I'm personally very excited about this. I love Chris Farley. Who doesn't?
He predates you. You weren't even alive.
I was 2 when he died, but so he doesn't quite predate me. Is that, I guess, well, I don't know, maybe that still counts. I was raised by a father who taught me the importance of Chris Farley. So he doesn't
Good job, Dad.
Good man.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Robbie Brown. Anyways, the movie will adapt Your
dad's name is Robbie Brown?
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. It's so close to Bobby Brown. It's amazing. Sorry.
I've never made that connection. I do want y'all to know in high school, he was nicknamed Downtown Robbie Brown. So the first day of work, when Cameron called me Downtown Emily Brown, I was like, did my dad tell him to call me that? Like, I was so confused.
Isn't the abbreviation of Rob Bob?
Yeah.
Well,
Robert?
So Robbie's actually abbreviation of Robert. I guess I should say.
Robert. So Bobby Brown's name was Robert. Yeah. Your dad is Bobby Brown.
He could technically be Bobby Brown.
Your daddy is Bobby Brown, girl.
Ooh, breaking news.
That's awesome.
Bobby Brown, your daddy.
That's great.
Well, anyways, Bobby / Robbie Brown taught me the importance of Chris Farley. There's going to be a new biopic. And also Paul Walter Hauser will be playing Chris Farley. The name might sound familiar, but you've seen him in roles like I, Tonya, Richard Jewell, Blackbird, and like Alan Ritchson is also a Christian. So it makes me double excited about that.
He's the after party guy. He was the lame investigator friend in the new season of the After Party. I know him.
Yes.
Oh yeah. He's cool.
Yeah.
Without his beard, he kind of looks like Chris Farley. So
he does. Yeah.
We posted his I am second. He's like an outspoken believer. Yeah.
With his wife earlier this year, they talked about how God restored their marriage, helped Paul out of his addiction. So like he also is like really solid. We're excited about that. Don't know if that's going to make it into the Chris Farley biopic, but I'll watch it regardless.
Look at us just highlighting all these great outspoken Christian Hollywood weirdos.
That's what you get from Emily Brown's buzz.
Of all mediums.
Male performers.
This was a very male-heavy buzz.
Yeah. You all right? You lonely? Are you on the apps again? What's going on?
Don't get me started on the apps. I have a whole photo album of terrible app prompts. Maybe we'll make that a game one day on the show.
Okay. Let's do it. All right, that'll do it for Relevant Buzz. Make sure to check out relevantmagazine.com every weekday, where we are covering the intersection of faith and culture and everything in between. All right, stay tuned. Coming up, it's Jon Acuff. You're listening to Bad Bad Hats. The song is Bored in the Summer. Well, today's show is brought to you in part by Crown College, a boldly Christian and academically excellent college providing a lifelong, authentic community. Crown offers on-campus, online, and graduate programs, 18 NCAA Division III sports, international service opportunities, and a vibrant student life. Discover why Crown College is ranked top 3 in America for online Christian education. Visit crown.edu today. Well, our guest today is Jon Acuff. He's a speaker and author of books like All It Takes Is a Goal and The Soundtrack of Your Life, plus a ton of others. Over the last few years, there have been multiple studies showing Gen Z is really struggling with negative thoughts about themselves. One study from the Cigna Group found that 4 out of 5 Gen Z adults struggle with low self-esteem. 80%. That's crazy. Well, since Jon is an expert on taking hold of negative thoughts and he wrote a book about it, we sat down with him to learn more about how we can stop negative thought patterns in our lives before they start and how to avoid the spiral of overthinking. Here's part of our conversation with Jon Acuff.
There have been a lot of reports that Gen Z struggles with lower self-esteem and negative thinking really more than any other generation. You've spoken a lot about the importance of how rewiring our thoughts can change everything in our lives, which you actually call soundtracks. I'm curious, when did you begin to identify soundtracks in your own life?
Well, I'd never put really any thought into how I think. And I think that's true of most people. Most people talk about thoughts as if there's something outside of them. We say things like, she got carried away by her thought. He got lost in his thought. And what I started to learn is that my thoughts have a lot of power. And I started to do a lot of research into how powerful your thoughts are. I think one of my favorite examples of that, a favorite study, was done by NYU. Scientists at NYU brought 2 groups of college students in, and they said to the first group, we want you to make some sentences out of this word bank. They gave them a bunch of words and make some sentences. Same thing to the second group. But the second group, they had hidden words related to being old. Words like slow and tired and bald and even Florida, which I love that one, considering that Relevant is in Florida. And the idea being that they were trying to prime them to think about being old. So then they didn't know those words are in the mix. They said to the students at the end, walk down the hall. The second part of the test is down the hall. And that's when the real test started. They secretly timed students as they walked to the end of the hall, and the students who had read the words about being old physically walked slower. Just reading words changed their thoughts and physically changed their bodies. So your thoughts have a lot of power, and I just never felt like I knew that. I wasn't taught that in school. Like I never had here's how to think about yourself class in the 7th grade, or hey, here's how to think about high school and change, And so I started to realize my thoughts were turning into my actions, were turning into my results. What would it look like to have a real healthy understanding of mindset and how to change my mindset so that my thoughts work for me, not against me?
Well, yeah, like I mentioned, young people in particular seem to be really struggling with this concept. You actually wrote a book addressing teens and young adults specifically. Why did you want to speak to them directly?
Sure. Well, I think what's interesting is because of the nature of my career, I'm in my mid-40s. I'm talking to adults, so I'm going to companies across the country talking to adults. And often what I find is that somebody who's in their 20s, 30s, 40s is carrying around an old soundtrack and doesn't even know. So let's take somebody who's 35 and their company goes, wow, we see opportunities in you. We want you to take over this leadership position. And they pull back, and they don't understand they're pulling back because a teacher when they were 14 said, you're not a natural leader. And they believed that in that moment because a person in authority said it. And when people in authority speak, it has more weight. And then they believed it. And then they listened to that sound 10,000 times. So it doesn't matter if everyone is saying, hey, you're a leader, or hey, you're an artist, or whatever the phrase is, they're listening to an old soundtrack. So what's really cool about teenagers is if you'll teach them the truth, they can sprint with it, where they don't have to unlearn 20 years, 10 years, 30 years of old broken soundtracks. They go, okay, that's truth. I can run with that. And then the cool thing is when you teach a teen truth and you bump them even just a degree, the trajectory of their whole life is different. That 1 degree, that one healthy soundtrack, that one bit of truth can change everything. I think that's what's so powerful about it. There's never a time where it's too late to learn a new soundtrack. I work with adults all the time that go, wow, I told myself I wasn't a real writer for 5 years. And then when I changed one soundtrack that writers write, and I write, so I must be a real writer. And people mail me their book. Like I got a book in the mail the other day. Somebody sent me this book. Two people sent me this book and said, hey, we finished this book because we changed our soundtracks. So you can change your soundtracks at any age. What's really fun is when a teenager gets it. And then the other thing is that probably about 10 years ago, I was speaking to a bunch of teen camps. So summer camps, beach camps. And one of the things I do is I would say, hey, write down what thoughts you're hearing. Write down the thoughts that you have right now. And I'd give them pieces of paper and they'd write them anonymously and turn them in. And 95% of them were negative. 95% of them were negative. And the word that was the most common on all of them was the word enough. I'm not skinny enough, popular enough, pretty enough, smart enough. I'll never be enough for my mom. And you just see. And so teens, especially, it's a time in your life where you're picking up soundtracks. You might believe ones that aren't true. And if you can actually lean into something true, it can really change the whole scope of your life.
Something I do want to talk about is overthinking, because I suspect a lot of people think they're rewiring their thoughts, but they're really just obsessing over them. So how can we make sure that we're not falling into a spiral of overthinking?
Well, so I learned a great lesson from a guy named David Thomas, he helps run Daystar, this amazing center. It's a family counseling center here in Nashville. And we were having a conversation about this one day over coffee. And he said, John, the problem is with negative thoughts or downward spirals or whatever, toxic thinking, whatever you want to call it, we want there to be a switch. We want to find a single switch that turns it off forever. And so we think, as soon as I lose this amount of weight, I'll never feel stress again. Or as soon as I have this friend, or as soon as I accomplish this thing, or, adults will go, as soon as I do more yoga, or as soon as I drink enough water, or as soon as I move to a different city. And then what happens is you do the thing, and then the stress comes back, because stress is going to come back. We live in a stressful world. Like there's going to be stress. And so he said, the better thing to do is think about it like a dial. Like think of life as a dial. And there's things that'll get your dial up to 10, where you're at your highest stress level, or you feel the most negative. And then it's your job to figure out, how do I turn that dial down? So what we encourage teenagers, adults, everybody to do is have some turn down techniques, so that okay, for me, when I get to a 10, when I get to a 9, and maybe it's finals, it's applying for college, it's a friend who I thought was my best friend stabbed me in the back, and you go, wait, my dial is at 10. What are the things you can do to dial it back down? And they can be anything, but it's really encouraging when they're physical, they're fun, they're easy to do, they're free. And that can be anything from you have a dog and petting your dog. I mean, we know that physically releases serotonin, that it's healthy for you to pet a dog, but it can be, I have a friend I call. It can be, I walk around the neighborhood. It can be, I listen to my favorite playlist. I listen to these 3 songs that are encouraging to me. And so, because what happens is often when you get in a downward spiral, you end up not doing any of the things that'll help you get out of it. That's the challenge of a downward spiral. You just continue to stay down. And so if you can, and it might be as simple as you have a list of them on a note on your wall, so you remember them, and you go, oh, wait a second, I feel at a 10 right now. Okay, am I getting enough sleep? That's one of my turn down techniques. I gotta get sleep. Am I overdoing it on Instagram? My kids will take Instagram breaks, because as a teenager, it's interesting. in elementary schools around the country, they won't let you bring a birthday invitation to the class unless you're inviting everybody. So they won't let you come in with 4 invitations and only invite 4 people because it isolates the rest of the class. But then in high school, you have geotagging on Snapchat that'll show you where everybody is but you. Like that. And it's not like you're still going to be crushed by that. Like there are adults that see that and go, oh, wow, I went to dinner with my friends a week ago and they didn't post a photo of us. And then they went with this other couple last night and they posted a photo and said it was the best time ever. I mean, I guess our dinner wasn't worth a photo together. Like, okay. And so that's part of the challenge of being a teenager is that you've got all this extra, stress going on. So you say, okay, here's my 5 things. Here's my 10 things. You can make the list as long as you want. But when I get to a 10, when I get to a 9, I do one of these things to help turn the dial back down. And I have the power to do that and the responsibility to do that. I get to go. And if you have a parent that's a committed parent and you've got a good relationship with them, you can also have them have the list too, where they can go, hey, it feels like you're tense right now. Remember, like, these are the 5 things you asked me to remind you of. Like, maybe go do one of them for 10 minutes. Like, maybe a walk around the neighborhood. So the turn down techniques, I think, really help, because otherwise, if you think it's a switch, you're going to feel like a failure constantly, because as soon as you switch it off, the stress comes back because life is stressful. And then you feel like, well, it must be me. I blew it. Everybody else doesn't have stress. And you forget that, no, everybody does. And that's part of being a human.
That was Jon Acuff. Check out his books. Just go to Amazon, type his name in. Ton. But if you want more about the topic we just talked about, check out The Soundtrack of Your Life. All right, stay tuned. Up next, it's your feedback. You're listening to Suki Waterhouse. The song is My Fun. Hey, if you like this podcast, but you might like it better if there were no ads, you can do that. Head over to relevantmagazine.com and sign up for Relevant Plus. For just a couple bucks a month, you get this podcast ad-free. You get ad-free unlimited reading at relevantmagazine.com, including the full podcast and magazine archives, our beautifully designed digital issue, and a little more. Check out all the info right there on the Relevant Plus tab at relevantmagazine.com. Okay, it's time for your feedback. Last week, Jesse had a bad customer service experience. Where was it?
It was at Chick-fil-A.
You didn't get my pleasure.
Of all places.
Yeah, and it was
took me a while to hear what you actually said when you said you didn't get your pleasure at Chick-fil-A. So, okay, it got us thinking about bad, awkward, memorable customer service experiences that you've seen or had. You hit us up on X at Relevant Podcast. Here's a couple caught our eye.
This one is it's from Tim J, and it says, I recently was a paying customer at a men's conference and got to experience an extremely inspirational opening act from someone who holds multiple Guinness World Records. Upon seeing such a performance, I was inspired to reach new heights as a human and with my own strength. However, later I was berated by one of the speakers for enjoying the act and being inspired by it.
P.S. The Jezebel spirit attached to me, and I now am a raving misogynist.
On the good side, I had a new personal record in the weight room this morning. So
my gains have been incredible.
If I didn't know that you were talking about that performance, I really would think you were talking about a power team performance, because wasn't that their whole thing? They were inspiring people to be strong.
Yeah, you could rip a phone book if you love Jesus.
And they were in tank tops. They were in very revealing tank tops as well. So
Interesting.
It's a slippery slope.
There is one from Ben Stroop. He said, one time we went to Burger King. First guy ordered a chicken sandwich, and they said, honey, we're out of chicken. It's going to be a while. He said, okay, he'll take a Whopper. They said, now it's really going to be a minute. We're out of those two. I'm sorry, are you out? Yeah, got to get some from another store. At that point, just close the door.
Was he at a Jamaican?
No, it was at Burger King. I've had that happen at KFC. I pulled up to the drive-thru before I could get a word out. They said, just so you know, we're out of chicken. I was like, it's in the name. You can't be out of chicken.
Yeah. So what are your options? I want a biscuit. Like,
literally,
we have a lot of sauces.
I think I just drove away. I was like, okay, why? Like, what am I going to get? A bunch of sides?
Yeah, I think half the time when restaurants do that, it's just the manager's not there, and the workers are like, hey, we don't really want to do anything.
I've also had someone.
They're on Instagram.
Yeah. I was gonna say there's a Bojangles by my house that I went to one time, like maybe half an hour before it closed, and they told me that they were already closing up. And I was like, you definitely have 30 more minutes before you got to close up, but. They were tired.
I respect that. I worked at a restaurant, and it's like there's nothing. You're slow. You start cleaning up, organizing the back, and then somebody comes in half an hour before you're supposed to close, ruins all of this work you just did. Tell them you're closed. Like I respect that. That's fine.
We left $14 on the table tonight. Okay, we'll be all right tomorrow. We'll make it up tomorrow.
Yeah,
I got no
right.
Yeah. All right. It's time. Okay, it's time for this week's
editorial question of the week.
We were talking earlier about the crazy men's conference that seems to make headlines every year in Missouri. It got us thinking about church conferences growing up and crazy things we've seen. Now, maybe you saw a pastor get kicked off of stage by the host pastor. That I haven't seen that yet. Maybe you just saw uncomfortable somebody calling out a spirit in the church. Maybe you saw tanks and strippers. Who knows? Hit us up on X at Relevant Podcast and tell us the craziest thing you've seen at church or at a church conference. Oh boy. I feel like we're going to have quite a few of those.
Yeah, we'll do a whole episode.
This is scary.
Well, before we wrap things up, I want to thank Jon Acuff for joining us today. For more on that topic about mental health and self-doubt and negative thoughts, check out Relevant. We have been covering this pretty regularly over the last several years, especially. But also you can check out Jon's book, The Soundtrack of Your Life. Also, while you're at the site, don't miss issue 114 of Relevant. We have conversations with Brooke Lidgerwood, Need to Breathe, Rainn Wilson, Mike Todd, so many others. It's all available for free. Just click on the magazine tab and you can read all of our full-length magazine features. It is presented by The Covenant, which is streaming now on Apple TV. All right, on that note, we'll wrap it up. I'm Cameron Strang.
I'm Jesse Carey.
I'm Emily Brown.
And I'm Derek Miner, and I'm dropping an album called Highlight Tapes. Listen to it. It's great.
It's out today.
You're going to love it.
And it'll get you in the gym so you can look like the Reacher and say outspoken things about your faith.
And
listen, I'm about to do some push-ups right
now. I'm telling you, the acrobatics that you're going to be able to pull off with this shirtless.
After you listen to Derek's
you're going to get a lot of invites on the men's conference circuit this summer.
I'm ready.
Whole new heights.
No strippers.
Whole new heights.
Just no strippers. Just please.
All right. We'll see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Relevant Podcast. Check out our features, interviews, and news updates every day at relevantmagazine.com. And make sure to follow Relevant on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest. For more great podcasts, browse the shows on the Relevant Podcast Network, which you can find at our site. And while you're there, don't miss the all-new era of Relevant Magazine. A new issue releases every other month at relevantmagazine.com.
He's too handsome to be delivering this message effectively.
Relevant Podcast Network.